Hello and welcome to the Escape Podcast, your source for all good things in the universe of movies. I'm Josh.
And I'm Josh. Oh, wait, no, I'm sorry. I'm Brandon.
All right.
This is either episode 28 of the regular podcast or the newest episode of our status report.
Which would be 5.
Yep.
So yeah, I was talking to Brandon about obscure cartoons that I remember, not the main staples that most people know, like Scooby Doo, Looney Tunes, and all that kind of stuff. Just really random, weird stuff that, as far as I know, most people...
What year were you born, Josh?
83.
Okay. Me too.
As were you, yeah. So, let's talk about it. One of the first ones I remember as a kid, I had a few toys. Ever heard of Bravestarr?
The name sounds familiar.
Okay, I looked it up. It ran from 87 to 88.
What was it?
It was this cartoon about this, like, space cowboy thing. It was, like, the whole theme. He was a sheriff on New Texas or something like that. It was like a planet, and he had a horse that he could ride the horse, but then once they got there and he jumped off the horse could stand up on 2 feet, and it was like his partner.
Really?
Yeah. And I had a Bravestarr and the horse. I'm trying to remember what the horse's name was. I remember the horse...
Pepe.
No, the horse's gun that he carried was named Sarah Jane. He carried his gun called Sarah Jane. Oh, man, I almost had it. 3030. That was the horse's name. 3030. You ever heard of it?
You remember a lot of details about this. I don't remember any of this, so it's new to me.
So yeah, Bravestarr, that was one I remember.
That was a cartoon from when you were very young?
Well, again, I looked it up. It ran from 87 to 88, so yeah,
okay.
I was really young.
Yeah, I don't remember that one. I remember watching He-Man, but I don't remember watching a lot of it. But
okay.
We want to talk about...
Right. I will just say this. He-Man, G.I. Joe... And what was the other one?
Transformers?
Transformers were ones that most kids my age grew up on, but somehow I never watched them.
Aren't they making another He-Man movie?
Eventually. Now, I am familiar with the He-Man movie, because I saw that when they would show it on TV, I caught that. So that's the most familiar I am with the
As
He-Man.
far as I know, I've only seen that movie once. It was at a birthday party sleepover when I was like 11, maybe.
Okay. I would like to do the He-Man movie at some point.
Okay. Yeah,
anyway.
I agree. Yeah, I'd love to do that.
Back on track. So yeah, Bravestarr, that was one of the cartoons I remember a little bit.
I'm trying to think back to some of the earliest ones I remember. I know I used to watch one called Belle and Sebastian. I do not remember anything about it. I just remember that name. I think one of them was a dog.
Okay.
I used to watch one called The Little Prince. Oh. It was like this character he was the prince or something. He was stuck on this little planet. Well, not stuck. He lived on a little planet.
I've seen a new version of that.
And he has like a little rose that he waters every now and then, and I think it's alive, and it's supposed to be like a girl.
Okay. I only know that because me and Brittany, probably like a year ago, watched a newer, updated Jeff Bridges.
Do you remember this one? And this one it's kind of surprising that they used to show this. Let me get comfortable. So, they used to show this one, I believe, even on like the early days of Nickelodeon. I think it's called Bible Adventures. Was
that the one with a robot?
Yeah, it had a robot, and they'd go back in time, and they'd do whatever story from the Bible.
I do remember that one, yeah. Yeah, I do remember that. It was like a boy, a girl, and the robot.
Yeah.
Yep. I remember that.
It's funny that a lot of the cartoons when we were younger were all like Japanese, animated.
Yes.
We would have never known it, but I think that's probably part of the reason, like with our generation, that anime kind of got big.
Yeah.
Is because it kind of reminded us of our childhood in a way.
Right.
Just like the art style of a lot of it.
Sure.
With the real big eyes and the spiky weird hair and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, my next one, SilverHawks. Heard of SilverHawks?
Describe it to me.
I had a couple toys of this one too. It was like a space adventure thing. The characters, they all had like this metal armor, like skin tight armor, except for their faces were exposed. And
didn't they have like feathers and stuff? Or
yeah, they like flew out in space and stuff.
Okay, now I kind of remember this.
I remember there was the Copper Kid. He was like an alien, and he spoke like tones or something. And he was like this. They were all silver, literally, but he was like copper, so he was like an orange color. And I had the toy of him, and there was one of the villains was like kind of bull looking creature. I think his name was like Mumbo Jumbo or something like that. Don't quote me on that. I could be wrong. But yeah, I barely remember, but
Another thing about all these cartoons from the 80s is a lot of them weren't actually shows that anybody intended on keeping up with.
Yeah.
They were just, we'll throw out a few episodes, sell some toys.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. A lot of it was to sell toys.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's see. Denver, the Last Dinosaur.
I do remember watching this one.
He's your friend, and a whole lot more.
I remember watching this one a lot and never really liking it.
I don't think I liked it a lot, but I remember back then, you're watching a show and you kind of eventually, I learned the pattern that, okay, this other show comes on after this show, so I don't want to miss it because I can't record it.
Seemed like it came on Saturday mornings a lot.
Probably. And I just remembered one on the fly. James Bond Jr.
Yeah.
James Bond.
I think by the time I had seen that, I was aware of James Bond, but I'd never had really watched the movies or anything. One of the things I always remember from that cartoon, though, is they had Jaws in it.
No one can stop him. Always tries. Young Bond.
Burgers and fries.
Lies. He learned the game from his Uncle James. Now he's there. Something. James
to take
Bond.
the blame. Anyway, they had the character Jaws in there, and I was like, oh, that's actually a guy from the movies. Yeah. So that was kind of my introduction to James Bond a little bit, was through that cartoon.
Yeah, I didn't like that show, but I, again, remember watching it because either it was like nothing else on, or I was waiting for the show I really wanted to come on.
I never was super into it.
Yeah.
Hold on. Go.
Gravedale High.
I don't know.
Okay, so I looked it up. This one apparently ran in 90. It had Rick Moranis, Ricky Lake, Brock Peters, and Tim Curry doing voices. And it was basically where Rick Moranis' character...
Was it horror themed?
Yeah. It was basically... He was a human, but he was a teacher at a school that was all like monsters. Mummies, werewolves.
I think I do remember that one a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, Gravedale High. Something, we're dying to meet you.
Yeah, there was a lot of stuff back then, too, that was horror-themed for kids. They don't do that as much nowadays.
Well, what's funny is, I thought, the best my memory could serve, I thought it was called Monster High. Mm-hmm. So I looked it up, and apparently there's a new, like, CGI, like, kids, it looks like it's really aimed toward girls, called Monster High. I was like, okay, that's not it, but I finally figured out it's Gravedale High. But they're doing stuff like that now, where it's like monster-themed kid stuff.
Well, I guess maybe, like Monsters, Inc. Did they make a TV show out of that?
Not that I'm aware of. All right, Dr. Snuggles. And
you have a new nickname, by the way.
Yeah, Dr. Snuggles. So I looked it up. Apparently this one went from 79 to 80. And the only thing that I can remember Dr. Snuggles, and then it's like, Dr. Snuggles, something about a rainbow.
I almost think that I should look some of these up while you're talking about them. So
all I remember about it is like there were like trees that had like arms and legs and talk to him. There was one point like where he's like in a rocket and they go over like a rainbow has a face on it. That's about all I remember.
Okay. You remember a lot more than I do, so I'm going to let you do a lot of these descriptions.
Okay. Mr. Bogus. He was like this little yellow guy. I think I always loved like Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, where like they're small. So like he was like this little creature and like he would like open a tile and he would go through these tunnels and in people's homes and stuff. And there was like a claymation part to it. I think what it was there was probably like the original version was like a claymation or something. And they used that as like in between segments. Mm-hmm. And I just remember there was like Dust Bunny monsters, like where his...
When did that one run?
I think it was 19...
that one doesn't sound familiar.
I'm sorry, 91 to 93, I guess.
Okay. Wow, it was on for a while. I'd never even heard of it.
Yeah. David the Gnome?
Yes.
Okay, the only thing I can remember was that he was a doctor and that his fox name was Swift.
With birds that talk and fish that sing.
See, now I can't remember that. And I know that, what's his name, Tom Bosley?
Tom Bosley.
Bosley? Richie Cunningham's dad.
I don't remember him being the voice for it. I remember the trolls.
Okay, I don't remember.
They would turn to stone.
I remember that, but I don't remember what they looked like.
They had like big noses. They had dark hair. I think they had tails.
I remember from some cartoon, it's funny you say that where there was like something about trolls that would turn to stone.
Gargoyles.
Well, yeah. But I guess I kind of forgot what it was from, but I remember one time I was thinking about these cartoons and like for some reason I could hear his voice, and obviously I didn't know Happy Days back then, but it just kind of also clicked, like that's the same guy. And I looked it up and it was.
It was weird because I watched David and Gnome a lot. Parts of it I didn't like as a kid because it always seemed real, I don't know.
Edit.
it just seemed a little almost boring sometimes in a way.
Yeah, again, it's...
But it was on,
it's just one
so
of
I
those
watched
things,
it.
yeah.
For some reason, it seemed like I watched it at my grandma's house a lot. And it's not like I went to my grandma's house a whole ton. But it seems like every time I did go over there, that was on.
Yeah.
And I'd watch it.
Okay. Fantastic Max?
Mighty Max.
I remember that. I watched that one, too. But, no, Fantastic Max was this one where he was like a baby, and I can't remember if the premise of the show was that he was supposed to be actually doing this or if it was imagination. But he had like a robot toy that would come to life, and he had an alien toy that would come to life, and he could like make a ship. So like, I remember there was one episode I remember he made his ship out of like the sand in the sandbox and then a real ship, so that he'd go out in space.
This one was a short one?
88 to 90.
Oh, okay. I wonder how many episodes there were.
That I'm not sure.
It sounds like one of those specifically made to sell toys.
Yeah. Okay, now this is the one, I couldn't remember the name of the actual show.
Hold on a second, though.
Okay.
I want to go back to David the Gnome for a second. Did you realize that? I think that was a German cartoon.
No, I didn't realize that.
I believe it was a foreign cartoon, and then we just have the American version with American voice actors. Anyway, go ahead.
This one, I could only remember certain parts of it, but I figured it out. It was called Mysterious Cities of Gold.
That's the name of the show?
Yeah. I guess it was about the Aztecs or something about how it sounds actually pretty interesting. I guess it was a Japanese cartoon, but it was about like the Mayans or something, or the Aztecs, and like there was like 7 lost cities of gold. And so basically like these kids, I can't remember what nationality, they're all different, and like they all end up teaming up, and the big
Sounds
thing,
like Captain Planet.
Well, there was only 3 of them. But I remember basically there was I'm looking at the Klingon Bird of Prey model over there. Uh-huh. It was like this ship thing, but it resembled a condor, and it was like made of gold. And I remember the kids had like each this like necklace, like one kind of looked like the moon, and one was like a circle. And I think they like put their pieces together, and that slid into the slot, like not like a coin slot, but a circular disc inside, and that's what powered this craft.
That part almost sounds familiar, but nothing else does to me.
And that's really all I can remember about it. But I just remember this ship that looked like a bird.
Okay.
Giant.
When was that on?
That was on from 82 to 83, so
that was being rerun. Early.
Yeah, so it was obviously being rerun later for me to be able to watch it. Heathcliff.
Yes. I watched a lot of Heathcliff.
I don't remember much, I just remember the intro mostly. Where, he had a car that,
like a Cadillac.
Yeah, and then,
a Cadillac.
Yeah. It, turned into a boat or something. It could, do all kinds of crazy
stuff. They never drew him with both teeth sticking out. I'm sure it was the artistic style.
Okay.
But I always thought he had just one tooth, because it'd be, one tooth sticking out.
Oh.
He had a couple of friends. One was real big and fat and stupid.
Yeah.
The other one was,
he wore a headband.
Yeah.
I think one of them had, headphones, and he wore, a bandana around,
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, and he wore a cap. I picture a cap hat.
Probably.
One was on roller skates all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, and they lived in a junkyard.
Yep.
But it almost seemed like he never really hung out with his friends that much.
He was a jerk.
How it went?
I don't know. I like I said,
I do remember liking Heathcliff. I liked Heathcliff and Garfield, although Garfield was way better.
Yes. Bobby's World.
Yes.
Okay.
Howie Mandel.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Although I obviously didn't know who he was at that time.
The one thing that probably would stick with me from that one is his mom's Wisconsin accent.
Don't you know?
Yep.
All right. Bonkers.
Police cat.
Something. Yeah, he was some weird animal. He kind of looked like a cat, but it was
that was a Disney one.
Yeah, it was almost like what's that movie, Roger Rabbit, where it was there was the Toon World and our world. Uh-huh. In the cartoon, even though it was all cartoon, obviously there was the real world and there was the Toon World. I
remember that one a little bit. When did those run? Heathcliff and...
Now, this one... Oh, Heathcliff was, I guess, 84 to 88.
Okay.
And I don't actually have years anymore. Okay. So Bobby's World. Bobby's World and Bonkers. Eke the Cat. That was probably the most well-known of this.
Yeah, his neighbor had the dog, Sharky.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that, yeah.
Yeah, we're getting into some that I know now.
Okay. Count
He had a
Duckula.
girlfriend, too, didn't he?
Yes, and she was huge. Annabelle, I think her name was.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Okay. Count Duckula.
Duckula.
Yeah.
Something
Transylvania. I think I remember. I can only remember this one episode, like, really well. It was where, like, somebody was visiting their castle, and, like, there was, like, an Igor type butler. He had a hunchback, and
dinner's ready.
And he was trying to, like, he kept trying to, like, I guess kill them, for lack of a better word. And he kept messing up, but, like, Count Duckula showing them around, and I remember he was, like, peeking through a hole. And
this is another horror-themed one.
Yeah, and it looked like a painting of, whoever, and there was, like, a chandelier, and I remember, like, at one point he was trying to get them to, wanting them to stand at the right spot, and they were, but then he cut it, and then they moved at the right spot.
I watched that one a lot. That one they showed a lot on Nickelodeon. I don't remember really specifics from any episode. I remember the theme song, and I remember the premise is that he was a duck, Count Duckula.
Yeah, vampire duck.
He had the maid was like a big fat goose.
Probably.
And the thing about him is he was a vampire, obviously, Duckula, except he was a vegetarian, so he only liked to eat, like, tomatoes.
Okay.
He would drink ketchup instead of blood.
Okay.
But that's about it.
I feel like there was an element to the show where there was like for lack of a better word, almost like a transporter type thing. I thought
there was some kind of machine that he would get into.
He could get into it and it could take him other places in the river.
Yeah, or maybe through time or something.
Probably. I don't remember a whole great deal of it, but I remember those little details. The young Scooby Doo.
Meh, I was just watching regular Scooby Doo.
Okay, what about the other Ghostbusters?
Yes. Tell us about the two Ghostbusters, Josh.
Okay, so before Ghostbusters that everybody knows, Bill Murray and Dan Aykroyd and all that, there was another, I think it was a TV show, it was two guys and a gorilla. And
I think this was the late 70s.
Yes, I think so. And they, like, caught ghosts and stuff. It was a guy in a gorilla costume. So basically, when the Ghostbusters that most people know came out, I guess there was, like, some dispute over the name because they were literally called Ghostbusters. So they decided, whoever owns the rights to that, decided to, like, revive it, I guess, in the form of a cartoon.
Yeah, due to the popularity of the Ghostbusters, they made
the other Ghostbusters. So that's why when you watch the cartoon version of the Dan Aykroyd, Bill Murray Ghostbusters, it's called the Real Ghostbusters.
Yes.
Even though the movies to those Ghostbusters...
They had to differentiate between the two.
But I remember watching it again. Didn't like it as well. I remember, let's go, Ghostbusters.
The theme song was great.
Let's go.
I remember the intro was really cool, and it had like the phone that was like a skeleton and all sorts of stuff.
Yes. And the car, I remember, like, they like would fall into the car, and the car like would get up on legs, like, and with the wheels at the end, and like it had like a face, like a ghost face on it. Mm-hmm. But
when I watched the intro, like, I remember that intro. I don't remember a whole lot about that one. Mm-hmm. I remember liking it.
Yeah.
It's hard though because like they always played the other Ghostbusters, the Real Ghostbusters.
Yeah, I remember being confused, and I remember my dad telling me, because he knew, he was more familiar with the other Ghostbusters, so he was like, "Well, this is the original one." I was like, well, I just didn't understand. Yeah, I remember the one guy wore like the old like pilot's thing, like the leather-looking thing with the goggles, like, but he always kept them up.
Didn't one guy kind of have like I don't want to say fedora, but like a Cuban-style hat, like a short cowboy hat?
I don't remember that. I thought one of the characters was like yellow, shorter and a little heavier, and the one guy was like thinner and taller.
Maybe.
And then the gorilla. Gummy Bears.
Yes, cartoon. Gummy Bears,
and
bouncing here and there and everywhere.
Okay, I don't remember that. I just remember there was like some kind of something they drank, and it could give them the ability to...
berry juice or something.
Yeah.
Gummy
and they
juice.
could like bounce around more, but then, like when they ran out, it was like almost like they were in trouble or something.
What a weird show. That's a classic one. What's funny is that was another Disney one. Okay. And I'm familiar with a lot of these Disney shows because every now and then you'd get the free weekend or whatever. Okay. And like every time that happened, I was glued to the TV. Like we'd get for Disney Channel for free because it used to be a pay channel.
Okay.
And I'd watch all those cartoons. It was always a treat.
Okay, so the last one I have on my list, unless I think of something, Noozles.
Go on.
Okay, it's going to sound crazy. I think this is also a Japanese show, and it was about this girl who has this koala bear stuffed in, and she finds out when she rubs her nose with it, it comes to life. But like you find out there's this parallel dimension. This is where I actually think it's like interesting. If it wasn't like silly stuff like koala bears and stuff, there's this other dimension where it's all Australian animals, like kangaroos, platypus, koalas, and like the neck frill lizard thing, where they're like people, but it's called Koala Walla Land. And
okay, wait, I might be thinking of a different one.
Okay.
There were 2 koala cartoons.
Okay, well, basically, so this bear that she has, she finds out comes to life, and then eventually his sister bear comes and
Pinky.
Yes,
okay,
or Pinky or Binky or something like that. Yeah. And basically, so she would go into Koala Walla Land, and she had to wear a disguise because humans weren't allowed there. And what's really weird is it was like kind of heavy concepts, like, and again, if it wasn't such a silly idea or silly with the animals and stuff, it was kind of, so basically
I remember loving that one.
There was, it was a parallel dimension, and you find out that basically in the Australian outback, it was like some famous, like, not arch rock, but there's some kind of famous,
the mountain that's down there, yeah.
There's a cave, I guess, and in this cave was this portal, which for some reason, like, when I was a kid, any movie, show, whatever, about, like, parallel dimensions and portals to other places was... So, like, there's this portal to the Koala Walla Land where this guy ends up. And in Koala Walla Land is weird because it doesn't look like Earth. It's, like, floating things. And it's, like, almost like space where you can, like, swim around in it. Like, there's air and stuff. So, like, this guy is lost in this world. And I guess there's, in the center of Koala Walla Land, there's like a crystal place or something like that. And he goes into it, but I guess he doesn't know, because like the animals are chasing him because like he's under arrest. And he goes to this crystal place to hide, but you find out like he didn't know that once you enter, you're trapped. And so like eventually his body disappears, the shadowy face stuck in this crystal. So I guess like eventually, I think her name was Penny, the main character. She... like ends up in Koala Walla Land, and you find out it's like her grandfather, and at some point even her dad ends up there, and he basically gets to meet his dad, but they had to give him this like protective bubble because again, I guess if he goes in without it, he would be trapped in the crystals too. And it was just kind of weird because like there's this part where like he comes, if you will, face to face with his dad, his bubble against the crystal that he's trapped in. And his dad's like this shadowy figure, and he's explaining like how basically my body's been gone for a long time. This is all that's left of me. And he even like puts his hands against the glass or the crystal, and like he tells his son like put your hands up, and like it ends up being this weird thing like that, like with this parallel dimension. So I looked it up, and like apparently there was this whole thing about how our worlds were going to both be destroyed, like our dimension and like their dimension. And there was something about where something had to be put right before they... It was, again, it was a really interesting concept, I thought. Again, if it wasn't so silly. But I remember that.
Yeah, I remember watching that one a lot. I remember some of what you said.
Yeah.
There were 2 cartoons on around the same time. That one and another one. The other one, I think, wasn't specifically about just koala bears.
Yeah.
Like, it was like a human town almost, except instead of humans there, they were all like Australian animals and stuff. Like there was a platypus and all sorts of stuff.
Yeah.
I don't remember that one as much. I remember that one. I was talking to a buddy about that one not too long ago.
About
and
Noozles?
I couldn't remember the name of it. Yeah. Noozles, though.
I remember
I used to like that one a lot.
Yeah, I remember one where like the guy that gets trapped there, I guess it again was her grandpa, like, so there's this one platypus that its egg is cracked, like a mother, like all crying, because like, so he happens to have this like red tip, I remember that, and he puts it over it, and it like keeps the egg intact until the baby can hatch on its own. So essentially the father platypus like helps him escape.
The dadipus.
Yes. Helps him escape because of that. But again, it was an interesting concept. I think that one and the Cities of Gold were probably like the most interesting.
Some of the
concepts.
ones that weren't just there to sell toys and stuff. Every now and then would be just like a little bit deeper and a little bit more for kids to think
look
about.
Look up Noozles, especially like the overlapping.
Now, how long was that one on? Do you?
I don't have that information.
Okay.
But for some reason, I still remember.
How do you spell it?
Noozles, I believe.
Okay.
But yeah, so that's most of the ones I can remember. I feel like there was another one.
Would you like the Swedish fish?
No, I'm good.
They're good.
Oh, do you remember? I thought of one more. Like, I'll write it down. So, Basically, yeah. It's look it up. Look up the premise was pretty interesting for a show like that. And then the one other one I do remember is I used to watch Dennis the Menace cartoon. Remember that?
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember watching Dennis the Menace.
Yeah.
That was one. I don't watch it a whole lot.
I remember one where they go to like the lost city of.
Jeez, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember something about the dad. His dad is with, and I remember there was like one of his friends was named Joe, and somehow there was like a crack, like it's like a big glass, like windows or something, walls of basically the dad, and it turns it into glass.
Huh, weird.
Yeah.
I'll throw a few out there that I remember watching that you didn't bring up. Dinosaurs.
I heard of that, but I never. I don't remember.
Dinosaurs.
Yeah, I don't think I ever watched it. I've heard of that.
That one, it was. Remember the cartoon company DIC? Dick.
Yeah.
They seemed to bring a lot of cartoons that I watched back in the day. I think that was one of them.
Okay.
And like there were dinosaurs from outer space. Then they had two different forms. One was their more primal form. Yeah. Like they wore these suits, and if they pressed a button, they'd get big and turn into like an actual dinosaur. But while they had these suits on, they were more anthropomorphic, like more human-like. They'd walk on two legs and all that stuff.
That was Dinosaurs?
Yeah, it was Dinosaurs, and it was like the herbivores versus the carnivores. Mm-hmm. And for each person on one side, there's like a counter to that on the other side. Yeah. And they came down and they had some teenager friends. Yeah. I remember liking that one a lot. When I was younger, dinosaurs, you couldn't keep me away from them. Like anything dinosaur.
You actually made me think of another one, but I'll wait.
Dino Riders?
Dino Riders.
Yeah.
That was another one I remember I really enjoyed, and I had a few toys of that, too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that was another one to sell toys. But I remember, they were like ant people or insect people. And they were
some
the bad
of them
guys.
looked like a cobra head. Some of them had like an insect head.
I remember I had a toy of one where he looked like an ant.
And one looked like a hammerhead shark.
Yes.
And then like the main guy kind of looked like a lizard kind of creature. And the other ones were like basically humans. They didn't call them humans, but yeah. And then like the bad guys put brain box on them.
Somewhere some like nerd has like boxes of unopened toys from all these 80s shows. Yeah. I'd like to meet that guy and take a look.
Yeah. No, that would be cool.
Another one I used to watch a lot. I used to watch Gem and the Holograms a lot, actually.
I remember that show, but I never watched it.
From what I heard, the movie was horrid, which is to be expected. Yeah. But I remember the show was kind of neat. Like, they had powers and stuff, and they could do all sorts of stuff. They would do some kind of weird thing where there was, like, magic or something involved, I thought.
Yeah, I remember something about, like, a guy puts on the ear.
Yeah.
And, like, also, like, her clothes comes on him.
Yeah, it's weird.
But I think it was one of those things I was just waiting.
There's another one. I can't remember the name of it. Maybe you will once I bring it up. Where a kid turned into a car.
No.
No? Car? Yeah, picture like a kid wearing like a polo shirt and brown hair, and then he gets down like on all fours basically and turns into a Corvette or something like that.
No.
No?
Not yet.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll find that to accompany the video here.
I used to watch that Mario show. And
there were a couple different Mario shows.
Captain N.
Captain N was cool because it'd be like different stuff from Nintendo.
Which is funny because I only had...
Sega?
No, I had a regular Nintendo, but I only had a few games for it, so I didn't realize any of those characters.
Oh, I love them all, like King Hippo, like I knew he was from Punch-Out.
Yeah, see, I
Donkey Kong.
Didn't have Donkey Kong, didn't have Donkey Kong. I only had Mario, like the first Mario, which had Duck Hunt attached to it. So like I didn't know this guy was from that and this guy was from that.
Yeah, there are a couple different shows with Mario.
There's like a Cupid character.
One of them was hosted by Captain Lou Albano as Mario.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember the one with Little Richard was in the mirror.
Little Richard?
Little Richard was on the show. On one episode, at least.
Okay.
I remember he like opens up in a medicine cabinet or something.
And Little Richard's on the
other side.
I would close it. There were also two Sonic cartoons.
I remember watching Sonic, but that was a little bit later.
This is probably early 90s for Sonic.
Yeah, wasn't
there was one that was a lot...
Urkel did the voice.
Really?
I thought.
I guess that makes sense to me. Yeah, there was the one that was goofier. He wasn't doing
his Urkel sound, but he was the same actor.
Jaleel White.
Yes.
My cousin.
Yes.
So, yeah, there was one that was goofier, and it was them versus Dr. Robotnik, and he had, like, the two, like, robot henchmen. One was, like, a chicken.
Mm-hmm.
Another one had a drill for a nose.
Yep.
And I believe Tails may have been in that one as well.
Yes.
And it was real silly. I actually remember thinking it was pretty funny. And then there was the other one that was more serious and had like a sci-fi theme to it almost. And that was on ABC like in the mornings and Saturday mornings.
That one I don't know.
That one, like, they never got their crap together right with that one, like the people that made the show. And I guess the network ended up saying it was too dark for kids, so they had to like make it more comedic and ended up just killing it off.
Wow.
But I remember thinking that one was super cool, and had they actually turned that into a series, I would have watched all of it.
Yeah.
X-Men was huge when we were kids. It's a little bit later.
Yeah. Okay, I guess if we're going to stray away from obscure cartoons...
I'm kind of drifting off now, but yeah.
Well, I watched the Ghostbuster cartoon, the one loosely based off the movie. I was a huge Ninja Turtle fan. Gargoyles, I like.
Batman.
Oh yeah, Batman the animated series.
That's one of the best cartoons ever.
Yeah.
The first few seasons of that.
I remember the Man-Bat.
Going back to some obscure ones, I remember there was a Toxic Avenger cartoon.
Oh, I do remember that. I forgot. I had a toy of that.
I think there were only like 6 episodes or something.
Bucky O'Hare. Do you remember that? Captain Bucky O'Hare.
Not really.
It was like this, almost like the Noozles in that there was like this alternate universe with like animals.
Was he was a rabbit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the Toxic Avenger one, I remember, I think there's also a Swamp Thing cartoon at the same time, but I remember the Toxic Avenger one.
I can't remember the Swamp Thing cartoon, just barely.
And one of the things that always stuck with me was, because I knew how stupid it was even as a kid. So the Toxic Avenger, he gets, super abilities after being involved in a toxic spill, and he's got some friends in the show that each have their own separate powers. One of them was a guy that could control plants, because there was always a guy like that in those shows. Like, didn't DarkWing Duck also have a guy like that? Yes, a
villain.
Yeah, so, and then you get Poison Ivy and Batman and all that stuff. So, Toxic Avengers version, he could control plants. I remember him looking kind of like an army guy. I might be wrong about that. But there was an episode where this factory, there was a problem. They were fighting a bad guy there, and something was overheating. I don't know what was going on exactly, but it was going to explode. This factory. What's another word for factory? I work at the plant.
Oh, I'm stupid. I did not get what you were getting
at. The end of the episode, there's nothing they can do. It's just going to explode. So Toxie looks over at this guy that can control plants. Why don't you stop it? What do you mean? I can only control plants. Yeah, this is a plant.
Oh my gosh.
And it worked.
So because it's called a plant.
Yep. If you watch a lot of Trauma stuff, then you might understand the humor in that and how stupid it is. It's actually right up their alley. But
do you watch a lot of what stuff?
Trauma.
Okay, what's it?
Trauma is a film company, all super low budget stuff. A lot of it is like shock and gore, but like at the same time, like over the top silliness.
Yeah.
Like on purpose, like super goofy.
Yeah.
Toxic Avenger movies.
Yeah.
They have a bunch of stuff, and they're just notorious for being like extreme low budget weirdness.
I remember the cartoon for Toxic Avenger. Huge nose. One of his legs was like
always, his nose was always running or something, or sneezing.
Yeah. And like one of his legs had a wheel.
Yeah.
And I think he like a pilot, because I think he also had like the leather
thing
you're
right.
with the goggles that came down. I don't remember what his story was.
Yeah, there weren't a lot of episodes of that. It was another one of those to hopefully sell toys.
I think I had the Toxie. Was that his main name?
That was his nickname, Toxic Avenger, Toxie.
Yeah. And I think I had the nose guy. That's it.
I remember there was a cartoon. It may have been called Cops. I think the name of the show, whatever it was like C.O.P.S. And like there was a detective, and he'd go around chasing like these bad guys, almost Dick Tracy style. Like each bad guy had his own thing about him. Like one might have a robotic arm or something.
That made me think. There was what's it called? The guy, he wears the Phantom, like 20 something.
Like the they made a movie, right?
Yeah, where he wears all purple.
Mm-hmm.
But this was a cartoon, and it was like set in the future, and. Because I remember he, like, basically almost like Spider-Man, he had, like, this rope, like, magnetic rope, and he could shoot it, and it would, like, stick to the side of a building. And it was, like, I think it was, like, the Phantom, there was a number.
The Phantom, 2018.
Yeah.
He just sits on his computer.
Yeah, basically it was, set in this future date. But I remember that a little bit, like, some CGI. Certain shots were... I remember looking...
Okay, CGI cartoons. There's one...
Well, it was animated, but, like, certain shots, kind of like the Spider-Man cartoon. Like certain shots they did like CG. It was like kind of.
Do you remember Reboot?
Reboot?
Yeah, it was all CG cartoon.
No.
It was like they lived in this computer world, and every now and then the user or whatever would boot up a video game, and, this thing would come down from the sky, and all the characters that lived wherever this thing came down would get stuck in the game, and they'd have to play the game against the user.
No.
But they would be like the NPCs.
Hmm.
But they had their own little world, too. There were 2 villains. I can't remember the guy villain, but there was a woman villain, too. I think her name may have been Hexadecimal.
No.
Yeah, it was... one of them was called Hexadecimal, and then later on, they brought the show back. It's getting long, isn't it? Later on, they brought the show back after the internet was around, and they would surf the internet and stuff, literally surf the internet.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cool cartoon. It was on for a while, Saturday morning.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
I can't think of too many more that I used to watch a lot, outside of Inspector Gadget.
Oh yeah, I remember Inspector Gadget. I remember I always wanted to know what Dr. Claw looked like.
Yeah, I got this picture of him hitting the thing. Didn't he have a cat too? Yeah. Because all bad guys that sit in chairs have to have cats.
Yeah, I guess they, in a way, kind of showed eventually what he looked like. There's a video game, I guess, based off of the Inspector Gadget cartoon. And I guess in the video game
And Penny?
Penny was his niece who she basically...
Did she have a pet too? Like a dog
Brain?
or something?
Yeah, I think Brain or...
Brain sounds right.
And I remember there was a book she had, and she would open it, and it would have a computer or something inside.
Yeah.
And I remember the chief would always be
You remember who did the voice
in Inspector Gadget? I know it's somebody. Didn't he do something in the live action version?
He was Max Smart from Get Smart.
Oh, okay.
Adam,
which is almost loose, a more comedic version of that, right?
Well, Get Smart was a 1960s spy spoof,
right?
But he had that real unique voice and.
Yeah,
I can picture it.
Yeah, I remember Inspector Gadget and
something Adam something.
Okay,
what was his name? Anyway, Max Smart.
Yeah.
Oh, you think you want to wrap it up then?
Yeah, I think that will do it. And just thought it'd be fun to just talk about some.
Yeah, this was completely unplanned. We're just sitting around talking about stuff. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there that have nostalgia towards cartoons. Drop a few. Let us know. What cartoons did you watch when you were a kid?
Yeah.
We were
remember
both born
any
in
of these?
1983.
Do you remember any of these movies I'm talking, or do you remember any of these cartoons we're talking about?
Yeah, or the movies that we didn't talk about.
Yeah.
So yeah, let us know in the comments. What? Yeah, now I'm doing it. What shows you watched when you were a kid? Do you remember any of these that we mentioned? Blah blah blah.
All right. Yeah, I think that will do it.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time. So long, farewell.